Hi, Angela.
Hi, Daniel.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good to see you. It's
It's
really good to see
good
you.
to see you too. And where are you today?
I am in Byron Bay, Australia. It's actually quite beautiful and sun is shining. So sorry for you northerners.
It looks beautiful. It's nighttime here, and I'm in Western Mass, and it is something like 4 degrees above zero. So it was minus 13 degrees last night. I don't think I've ever been in that temperature before in my life.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I wanted to chat with you because I know that you have a lot going on and you are creating some new things. I know, so I wanted to talk about that. So, tell me what's going on.
the newest thing for 2016, which I didn't plan it, but because I do spiritual guidance work, I connect to my guides and talk to them and see what's of a priority. They told me to create a new class. And I sort of argued with them a bit, saying I've already got another program on relationships called Transformed Relationships, which is really about creating the relationships that we want in a world where relationships don't stay together and don't seem to make sense. So how do you actually make a relationship last or work through stuff? And that's my main work. But the new work for 2016 was about the energy work that I've done. I've done energy work since a kid, but officially as a professional from my 20s. So as a dancer, I had experienced the body in dance, and in the stillness of the dance, sometimes, or in my body, I would feel a lot of things going on. So they wanted me to initiate a new level of work about the energy body, especially for 2016, because this year is where we really step into our dreams. It's no more about, oh, but I have to have this job or this relationship or this lifestyle, or if I'm not X, Y, Z by this age, there's something wrong with me. It's really about stepping into the energy that supports your body, that supports your soul. So I've always been fascinated by the soul and its relationship to the body. And the new energy body work is a meditation work that helps you really open up to what is your energy? What is it? Where does it live in your body? Where does it live in your aura? And if you connect to the divine or the universe, how do you actually connect that to your physical body? And if you're trying to manifest certain experiences in your world, how do you let a spiritual energy come through your heart and actually share that with in your world? Because I think it's really easy to be spiritual when we're sitting and meditating, but then stuff
Yeah,
happens.
so-called life happens.
Yeah, and all of your stuff comes up. So this work was about embracing that spiritual energy and really feeling how big it is.
You know, it's really amazing. That's confirmation for me. You and I haven't been able to talk very much. I've had a couple of moves, and you're on the other side of the world, and we just haven't been able to connect like this. And you know, we used to talk a lot more last year, but that's exactly what I've been studying and doing lately is this acknowledgement of it is going a little bit beyond the money and the job and manifesting all of those things. I've learned that I am manifesting all the time. I can now look back and see how I've been able to manifest everything that happened in my life. I mean, through divine, obviously, but you know what I'm saying, that the things that I needed got manifested, period. The fact that I wanted more and more and more and more and more and feeling dissatisfied from that, that was more on the personality and ego level. But once you evolve from that, it's not so much about striving for more like in the 80s money hungry way. It shifts. And what I'm learning is that if I connect to divine and I connect to my soul, and with the help of my guides, it changes the physical body. It changes your physical energy body, and the more etheric energy bodies and the aura and all of that. And it's the vibration of all of that that actually creates and manifests the physical things that are around us. So if we really want to evolve it, then what we really have to do is evolve that energy body. So that's really cool for me to hear that that's what you're doing. Now you're focusing a little bit more on, your focus tends to be more in the physical body and your transformed love and relationships course, which you told me about that. Now that's still, you're saying it's the older course, but from what I understand of that course, it's still a really powerful course to learn and evolve
Yeah.
relationships. You know, it wasn't just about like your intimate lover, but how all of your relationships affect
Oh,
that love, you know?
yeah, definitely. Because what happens when you're born is that you're a soul. I'm getting tingles. You're a soul that comes into a physical body. I've always been obsessed with that. I was
Hmm.
like, where do babies come from? Not in terms of like sex, but
Yeah, yeah.
and you're coming into a physical body that comes through two other humans, even if it's in a test tube. It's sperm or genetically modified, whatever,
Hmm.
from a source of human consciousness. So your parents are transmitters in the physical of your spiritual energy. You come through that filter. And of course you've got your soul and all your spiritual stuff, all your past lives or whatever, but you're choosing that tribe, that soul tribe to come
Hmm.
into. You're
Hmm.
choosing the country. You're even choosing the school that you go to before you come. All these things. So in transformed relationships, it's looking at all of the junk that you think is you. It's not really you. It's what you chose to experience. And if that includes abuse or trauma, it's why did you choose that trauma? Or if I chose that, what now? Because sometimes you don't need to know why anymore. So transformed relationships is parents and ancestors and baggage that you might have taken on from your culture, and actually combusting and transforming that into a place of basically neutrality, where you sort of go, okay, I chose that. That's really fascinating. And now let me feel my soul. Because once you start to just see all of the stuff in your family, it could be your ancestors, it could be your ex-partners, it could be children that you have, and you're thinking, oh, what have I done to my child? Or how come my child is experiencing this and I can't help them? That's so frustrating for a parent. Once you actually release your responsibility in creating that, because you didn't create it, your soul chose it for a reason, then you have a different way of working with it, and you begin to say, okay, I'm feeling this emotion right now. It's not my stuff, it's something my soul chose. So firstly, how do I get normal enough to deal with things? Because emotions tend to make you crazy and nuts. So I have a lot of those emotional management tools through everything I do, because I was very unstable, so I had to develop them. And then it's about, okay, what's my soul actually requiring me to see here if I'm upset? And then listening to that soul part of you. So you develop that skill. And you don't have to be super spiritual into meditation to do that, because the heart is just where you connect.
Well,
We just
it's,
forget that.
yeah, and it seems that I'm beginning to understand finally that why masters have talked about things like forgiveness and acceptance, and how important that is. Now I'm beginning to understand why it's important, and from a personality ego level, the last thing we want to do is forgive somebody who did something so-called wrong to us, or accept trauma, you know. But at some point we're going to have to move past that, and this is exactly what you're talking about. um, And so it sounds like you can offer tools on how to actually do that. So it's more than just, reading a self-help book and it says, even though this happened to you, you have to forgive the other person. Because as evolved as I get, I can read that, and if I don't get it, on an ego level, I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't just say, okay, I forgive them. You can even tell, like, it's just not going to work that way. It's just not possible.
Mm.
So, it is important to have these tools to truly be able to understand why and how that works and have power behind it. Like, well, what's going to replace it? Because if you've had a lifetime of memories of trauma and this built up resentment and anger, possibly, just as an example, and then you forgive them and accept it, what's left? If you haven't filled it with something else, you're going to be completely empty. And this is certainly a big reason to have self-destructive behavior or addictions or something like that. That certainly plays into that because you're literally empty. And so it sounds like you're providing something that people can
To
be filled up.
manage the emptiness.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you brought up emptiness, because a lot of people are experiencing it and think there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with emptiness. It literally is what you're saying. You've got to actually come to a place or a way of just accepting. It's not like the books say. It's got to be what your heart enables you to see. The more you sit with your feeling. So if you hate someone because they did horrible things to you, you've got to feel it until it's like a baby having a tantrum. You let it have the tantrum, you leave it in the room, and then they're hungry and they come out for food. So they complete the tantrum. But most of us don't complete those emotions throughout our whole life. And if you've had trauma, it takes longer. And people seem to think, oh, I should be over it by now.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, if you don't have space for yourself.
Yeah, and that also adds to it. So if you're in that place and then you're judging yourself that you're not over it, you're saying you're doing something wrong. You're saying that the situation was wrong, and it's just this, that's wrong and they're wrong and now I'm wrong and I'm wrong that I'm wrong, and because I know so much now and I should be over this, and it's like it becomes this vicious cycle. And so, how do you pull out of that? It sounds really lonely to accept that emptiness is the temporary goal. It's like, really, I'm going to have to go through that? So
Yeah, it can feel like what they call the dark night of the soul. I think Eckhart Tolle is one of the most famous authors about that process. And then I haven't read his books, but I remember watching his videos a lot, and he describes his experience of the emptiness being filled, or God coming in, or the universe, whatever word you use, that higher aspect of himself, really. He felt it and it came in, it filled up the emptiness. So some people are lucky, or we might think they're lucky, because that higher consciousness just fills it up. But for others of us, and look, I've been feeling emptiness since I was 13. I had childhood depression, undiagnosed, in my bedroom, trying to work it out myself. How many teenagers go through that? And how many children in other countries that don't have basic facilities in life live really hardcore lives that are struggling, not just with emptiness, but just even survival. So in that place, you experience deep, profound suffering, but they still, I think in some cases, those kids work through it just by connecting to that aspect of them that decided to come into life. And that's one of the meditations in the New Energy Body. It's connecting to that point spiritually in your energy field, which you do that work so beautifully, that chose to come into the physical life. That's one of the tools that I really found in the New Energy Body work that moved me, because when you get to that place that chose to come into life, all the personality and the suffering and the experience you had, it still hurts. But the choice is quite life transforming. It has an energy to it that's almost as powerful as sex that pulls in a new child, because it's meeting that choice to come into the physical body from the spiritual plane is literally matching the two energies of the egg and the sperm, or the man and the woman, coming together to pull in. It's that intense in energy at the spiritual level. In some ways it's much more bigger. In many ways it's much more bigger, because there's no limit to its physical dimension at all.
You know, I think that's that's probably one of the key things that so it sounds horrifying to think that, okay, now I've got to get to this place of complete emptiness and being really emptied before I have my soul fill it up. That sounds so horrible. But if I then know that, well, if I were able to do that and do it in a safe place, so it wouldn't really be that scary, what I would be filling up with is so much bigger and so much more infinite. And I think that's what's really hard for us to see. We get stuck in seeing things in the old way. But what I'm observing and what's occurring in the world is that there is so much more light that's on the planet energetically, that the truth is coming out and people are seeing what's really happening. And we can't push it sweep it under the rug as much as we were able to, and it's going to get even stronger. And we're going to see that the old way and trying to fill ourselves with, whether it's fake money, fake sex, fake bodies, fake love, fake jobs,
Food.
Fake food. Yeah, exactly. We're seeing that filling ourselves with fake isn't filling. It is temporary, and sometimes it is wonderful temporary, but it's just not enough anymore, and people are getting completely dissatisfied. So it's wonderful to know that, I know you're not the only one in the world doing this, but it's wonderful to know that you're providing a way for people to learn how to fill themselves at such a deep and profound level, and in a very real way.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I feel really nurtured by the way I'm teaching the work as well. And when you talk about not doing it the old ways, the new way, as far as it's been given to me as a blessing, because I didn't work this out, I just sort of fell upon it through the dance initially. I grew up with childhood depression, teenage depression. At 18, I was very socially awkward and fearful, and at a point with trying to manage my depression where I just went, I can't do this. I can't do life. Now, I didn't have suicidal thoughts, because I used to joke to myself, don't even have the balls to kill yourself. But people who have gone through that often have suicidal thoughts. And what happened in the dance when I was around 18 to 30, I started dancing socially and also in theatre and workshops, was that I felt the energy come in to fill up my emptiness. I felt the expansive, limitless vastness of the universe and my higher self, basically. I didn't know what it was, but I felt it. And it was so empowering that I couldn't deny it. So what I have created as much as I can in my work, and I also love to do it through live workshop, through dance for people, or through meditative movement, is to feel the energy. The new ways are really expanding our ability to feel. So our heart's going to be this incredible power center that will just feel other people's feelings. And our relationships, what we're heading towards, we're going to see when we hurt someone. We're going to feel it right here. We're not going to think it. We're not going to go, oh, I just hit my child and what a bad parent I am. And we're actually going to feel, before we might even hit the child, our own feelings of why we're angry or frustrated. And then we'll have tools. Some of the tools that I use are feeling that frustration and just allowing it to move through the body. It's got to go out, or it's got to come out of here. It's got to move. And then you call on your higher self to come and support you. Because thinking that we can do it the old ways, which is, oh, I should be a good person and I should find compassion and I should be this, doesn't work. We've all tried it. We all beat ourselves up. It doesn't work. You've got to have that expansive quality come in, and you've got to call it in. What I learned through the dance was that I would invoke maybe a different performer or a different culture of dance. Wasn't trained. I would call in a certain culture and I'd start to move that way, and I just thought, how did I do that? I don't even know that culture. Or I would watch another performer and feel them. In the same way, you can call on any energy. If you've got Kuan Yin or some master that you connect to, or a writer who's alive today, you just call on their energy and say, look, I need that vibe right now, and you invoke it. And that's what I noticed with the higher self. It needs to be directed. It needs to be pulled in. It needs to be called upon. Otherwise, your emotional body, especially if you've had any trauma, it doesn't have to be huge. It can be small trauma. Your emotional body's emotional. So it'll just cloud up all of the body and make you think that that's what's real. And it is real, but it's not all of you. It's just the emotions. So most of my work is really about becoming really, really, really aware of your emotional body. And believe me, I have to do this almost every day. I have some days where I'm kind of really groovy.
Yeah.
But other days I wake up and I'm like, God, what's this panic? What's this anxiety? One of my common emotions is panic, because I had that as a young child. And I still process it. But as the adult, with my higher self coming through and supporting, I'm like, help me now. I don't know why. Is this mine? No. What do I do with it? Okay, breathe. And then I use some tools just to let it go, usually through my aura. Or I just ask for the higher self to come in and take it. I don't need to do this. And just that conversation, because it's become a practice of mine, it stops me then from taking that panic and giving it to the puppy that I live with in the house or other people I live with in the house.
Right.
It's not their stuff.
Right.
So I just found, like, finding a way to connect to that higher self. I found it by grace when I was dancing and coming out of depression. And then I kept getting grace. So some of us, we really need more and more experiences of grace or magic or of feeling the divine there for us. Because we're so caught in the old ways still at a visual level. We still think, oh, I should be this or I should do that, or look at that person and why am I not like that, and this is happening for them. We're still caught. We need to ask for more of the divine or high self, whatever you call it. Show me that that's who I really am. And unfortunately for me, because I was dancing, I had experience after experience after experience, and that just proved it to me. I have no doubt now that I'm much bigger than this body, and I also love this body for what it can provide.
I think one of the aspects of the what we're calling the old way is that we were quite separated from each other. So we would limit it to the skin on our body. So I am, even on a spiritual level, I stop at this, place. And so even white light of protection, like a bubble of white light of protection around me, was like, well, I'm still going to keep myself separate from you. So now to empty ourselves of all of just that old stuff, and that's really all we're emptying ourselves, and then call in who we really are. And that is so big. It's an automatic connection to other people. And so many of us are already so sensitive. We say I was so oversensitive we called it oversensitive because nobody could handle it. We didn't know what to do with it. And so now you can teach some tools for people, like, well, this is why it's a good thing, and this is going to be so much easier for you because you're one of these oversensitive people, and you feel what other people feel, but what do you do with that? And it sounds like what you're saying is it has to be transformed, which means it has to flow. It can't just be thought away or read in a book or psychologized away. There something has to be done with it in order to heal it for the bigger, whatever the bigger meaning is for a person or a group of people.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the breath is given to us as a gift. So if you think about that choice from your higher self, the spiritual planes, to come in and meet the egg and the sperm coming together, and then when you come out of the uterus into the world and you take that breath, the breath is that expression of coming in and then... So we know, we've all heard that breathing is everything. But when you get into the physical, actual experience of it, it becomes magic, it becomes power. And maybe I was always, as a dancer, when I had these quite powerful experiences in my body, I went, why don't more people do this? But it's like you're saying, we feel the emptiness, we identify that means there's something bad or wrong with us. We get into addiction, we try to fill it with sex or someone else's love for us or some other thing. And we keep, the addiction sucks us in. And we forget that breath is so able to direct energy in, just like you chose to come into the physical body. Anywhere in the universe, if you feel it, and this is the key word, it's feeling, not thinking now. That's the new energy. The old ways were taking, the masters already taught us all that we needed to learn.
Right.
And then we started to try and get it right.
Yeah.
Because we still thought we did it wrong.
Yeah.
And we judged ourselves. So we spent the last 50 years or so going, you know what, this sort of failure thing, it's a bit old. We've done it for like couple of 100,000 years since Neanderthal men became humans, and I think we can let go of the failure thing. The new energy now is, well, if I'm not a failure, what am I?
Yeah. It is interesting that it really is that simple. So if I'm not these negative things that I associated with, so if I just empty myself of feeling like a failure, I'll take empty compared to feeling like a failure. When I look at it that way, it is a lot easier to accept emptiness. Especially if I know that the point of being empty is to then be open to being filled with, I call them gifts of the Spirit. I know that might sound a little religious, but they are gifts of Spirit. Spirit, all, not just our soul, which, we have our soul and our soul, and angels and guides and all of the universe, and that's just the physical universe. Then there's this whole non-physical realm, and just all of, all that is, and which is, what I'm taught is just made out of love. So there's either this thing of love that you're filling up, or just the turning away from it, like the lights off, the switch is off, or the lack of it. It's not really a lack, but just sort of, I always get confused with that, because if love is all there is, then what is this, how can you not have it? And it's like, well, somehow we figured out how to do it. And I think it's just part of the earth plane lesson, is we get to create whatever we want, but we have to we are beginning to understand, I'm beginning to understand that, well, there is sort of this love power that exists, and if you want to be you keep saying power, there is this power that we have access to, and we've been trying to do it on a much smaller level, where I could, on a personality level, feel like I have the power, and it's like, okay, well, you do, but you could have all of this too, and manifest your life that way, your body, your health, your finances, your your happiness and your peace and your serenity and your children.
Yeah. I was going to talk about something and it's gone, but the power I was mentioning in your breath, it's funny how power in our world, our material world, is considered individual
Mm-hmm.
versus a collective experience. And literally, it is an individual experience because your choice to come into the physical body was your choice. But humanity all come through that process. So the process is a collective experience. So for me, what I'm beginning to see around the planet, and you can see it on the social media, we're all beginning to say the same things but have our unique experience of it. We're having this dual relationship about, oh, this is my experience and the collective experience. So for the first time, we're bringing a lot more consciousness to that. Indigenous cultures had collective tribal experiences for thousands and thousands of years, and in some countries they prioritize the individual more than other countries. But, you know, we're saying it's both.
Mm-hmm.
It's both. And we're getting that as a globe, which is exciting. And then what you're saying about the duality part of if there's love, how can there be unlove or not love? This galaxy is based on duality. So one of the things that, unfortunately, if you don't have a mentor, you can contemplate these things in meditation, and that will be the easiest way to start allowing your spirit to go, okay, well, if the universe is love, then how can there be unlove? And that's what meditation was for, contemplation. You can daydream and just allow your brain to flow. And children do that. It's a very important process that they do for the collective, because they've got to ask these questions and annoy their parents and get us to provoke ourselves. But unfortunately, one of the things that put my head to rest, the mental part of me, was actually learning from a spiritual mentor that this galaxy is based on duality. So we came specifically to learn unlove, love and unlove,
Mm-hmm.
black and white,
Mm-hmm.
male and female, day and night. We came to learn through that filter of duality in this galaxy. So you can go anywhere else in the universe and have different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what we're opening up to. That's why relationships are opening up to. You don't have to be with one person. You don't have to be the same gender. You don't have to be the same nationality. You don't have to live in the same country or be with your tribe. You could be born in one place and marry somewhere else and have children somewhere else. I mean, we're opening now to go beyond that duality thing. And for some of us, that does our heads in, because we think, oh, but why have duality in the first place? Because it's painful.
Right.
But it was a process that we chose to come in to understand matter, physical matter, more. And in certain other galaxies, we can only imagine what they might experience.
Sure. I mean, I would imagine that other galaxies may have to deal with, how do you deal with instant manifestation, so that every thought you think is manifested physically, instantaneously, and learning how to control your thoughts.
Yeah.
So we do not have to learn how to control our thoughts. We have this huge, buffer of time where the time between a thought that you think and its physical manifestation is long enough that you can tweak it and make it perfect. It does happen. It does happen eventually, but that would be. I definitely would not want things manifesting as soon as I thought about it. I think about things all the time. So, yeah, exactly. So we're having a chance to really examine. Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? If we're going back and forth and not really focused on it and not really focusing our thoughts, because the power is in the focus. but it's what are you focusing on. So yes, we can manifest things, and we can manifest them pretty quickly, but you have to have the power of the focus and the emotion all attached to it. And you know, so if we are learning this duality, there's this love, not love, love, not love, and it's like if you can kind of understand that and kind of accept it, it's like, all right, well, now that makes me understand why things like positive affirmations are supposed to be powerful, because the positive side is closer to what truly exists, and that's the love and the realness of things, as opposed to the lack of it, which doesn't really have very much power. So this is what we're learning. Am I making any sense at all with that part? Because it's
Yeah.
conceptual.
Well, the lack connects to that emptiness feeling. So there is a connection between that lack of love and emptiness.
Okay.
So one of the voids, or if you bring in a child into your belly, there's an emptiness.
Yeah.
And something comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's everywhere. If you look around planet Earth right now, you'll see emptiness, which can be sometimes, unfortunately, in a negative sense, lack.
Right.
You can see in the economy. I mean, it's common sense. There's a lot of lack, and then there's a lot of abundance.
Right.
I mean, the USA is really experiencing that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're really resolving that is not what could be.
Mm-hmm.
And it when you go through experiences of lack, whether it's financial or emotional or not having your loved ones around you, you're isolated, or my depression is an example of lack, you actually do have a chance to connect to emptiness, which, like you're saying, is a whole lot better than failure.
Yeah.
And then it allows something else to come in. So it's to me, lack is part of the process of allowing the divine to come in. It's our judgment about lack, which is the problem.
Right. Yeah. It's this judgment about lack, and so yeah, I think that's important, that we can just acknowledge that there's more to the picture, and if we acknowledge that there is this duality, meaning lack and on one side and abundance on the other, but it's the same. I don't even know how that works, if it's the same energy, just sort of different ends, like a magnet has the north and the south. There's no judgment about it, but well, which one do you want, And so if we're just acknowledging that, and we see that the negative side is that emptiness and that lack, and we don't want that, there's this all of this other stuff that you could fill it with. And so by going energetically, you really tap into the power of your soul and higher, all the way up to the power and love of God, or however you want to say that, but what creates this true source. And so looking at it that way, I would be a lot more willing to empty as much as possible so that I could get that energy. And it sounds like you have something set up, or are setting it up, so that you can teach people how to access that and what to do with it and how to do it in a really safe place.
Yeah, everything I have, the Transformed Relationships is specifically for your love habits, all relationships, but we have a very strong focus on a love partnership, and especially emptying out if you've had difficult relationships or trauma, abuse, anything, betrayal, whatever. A lot of that stuff needs a way to be emptied. So a lot of the tools are about that, but it also goes to your parents, or if you have children as well. And if you're needing to go there, we can do ancestors as well. It's not something that everybody's interested in.
Right.
Because that's what transforms the ability of the heart to just manage what's coming up for you. So the tools are really all about getting that heart chakra and the connection to your heart to be able to manage all of your stuff. That can be, I guess it is a process of emptying it, but that process can be different for periods of time.
Yeah.
So in the program I have, it's 3 months, but the tools you have for a lifetime, basically.
So, Angela, how can we reach you, and how do we have access to you and your course? How do we do that? How do we find you?
You can create a free relationship miracle session with me, and that's the easiest way to talk to me and find out about the transformed relationships. And that's on my calendar, but I think on my relationship website, which is transformedrelationships.rocks, ROCKS,
Okay.
transformedrelationships.rocks. And then with the new energy body, I'm hosting it on Learn It Live. It's a spirituality platform for online trainings, and that will go through the six trainings for the 7 chakras and anchoring that new divine energy. So I can send you the links for those.
Yeah, and I'll make
Daniel.
sure that I have the links on my site, which is A New Spiritual Awakening. A New Spiritual Awakening, yes, .com, or on this YouTube channel. I'll post it below, or on the podcast. So, yeah, Angela, thank you so much for the work that you do, because this isn't just for us to be happier in our relationships. This is transforming the world. And you touched upon it with children and finances and all of that. It is this kind of awakening that is happening now. It's more than being needed. It is happening. And you are one of the facilitators. So I'm truly grateful for you and happy to know you.
Oh, I'm so happy to know you, Daniel. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.